The galaxy was wide, endless, and full of ancient powers. For thousands of years, great empires rose and fell, each claiming to be unshakable. Among them, the Zorath Empire stood as one of the most feared. Their fleets stretched across entire star systems. Their colonies filled the skies, and their soldiers marched with pride. To many alien species, the Zorath were not just rulers. They were the very definition of power. Yet in the far corner of the spiral arm, beyond the usual maps of trade and conquest, there was a small blue planet. A world no one had cared for, a place dismissed as too primitive to matter. That world was Earth, home to a species called humans. The Zorath knew about them, of course. Their long-range sensors had noted Earth centuries ago. But they ignored it. Humans were considered too young, too weak, too chaotic to ever challenge the galaxy. At least, that was what everyone thought. Rumors of a shadow in the great council chambers of the Zorath capital, whispers began to spread. Scouts who traveled near the human region spoke of strange movements. Small fleets of human ships were leaving Earth's orbit and not returning. Factories on their moons glowed brighter than before, as if they were working on something big. One scout ship claimed to have seen an outline, huge, dark, and unnatural, moving silently among the stars. It was not a fleet, not a station. It was a warship. The Zorath counselors laughed at first. A human warship? One counselor said, his voice filled with mockery. What can these primitives build? A floating piece of metal with guns attached? They cannot even match our corvettes, let alone a dreadnought, another added. Their kind uses crude rockets and outdated fusion drives. But not everyone was laughing. The commander of the Zorath Intelligence Division leaned forward, his eyes narrow. Our reports are not consistent, he said. Some of our scouts have gone silent after approaching human territory. Others report systems jammed, sensors blinded. One ship did not return at all. The chamber grew quiet. Zorath ships did not simply vanish. So, the Emperor of the Zorath finally spoke, his voice deep and commanding. You are telling me these humans have created something dangerous? I am saying, my Emperor, the commander replied carefully, that they are building something, and it is not small. The scouts' mission to prove their superiority, the Zorath decided to send a small scout fleet of 3 ships. They were not massive warships, but sleek and advanced cruisers armed with plasma cannons and shield arrays. To them, this mission was not war. It was inspection. The fleet moved swiftly through the void, crossing light years with faster-than-light drives. Their commander, Captain Relvis, considered the mission a waste of time. Humans, he said to his officers. Always noisy, always reckless. But they are still children in the ways of war. We will find nothing but space junk and noisy engines. The crew laughed, sharing his pride. None of them believed humans could build anything worth fear. But as the scouts neared the edge of human-controlled space, their laughter faded. Their sensors picked up a faint signature, large and heavy, drifting near an asteroid belt. It was not a station. It was moving. The commander frowned. Strange. That energy pattern does not match any known alien ship. The closer they came, the more uneasy the crew grew. The outline grew larger, darker, filling their screens, and then the shadow turned. The first sight of Titan's wrath, it emerged from the asteroid belt like a beast waking from sleep. The ship was massive, larger than any Zorath cruiser. Its surface was not elegant or smooth like Zorath ships. Instead, it was rough, plated with thick armor, bristling with weapons. Turrets turned slowly, massive railguns lined its hull, and strange ports glowed with hidden energy. The humans had named it HMS Titan's Wrath. The Zorath crew stared in disbelief. This is a warship, one officer whispered. No, said another, his voice trembling. This is a monster. Unlike Zorath ships that focused on style and efficiency, this human warship was brutal in design. It looked less like a ship and more like a weapon made alive. Captain Relvis tried to regain control. It is large, yes, but size means nothing. Their technology cannot match ours. Prepare to scan and record. But before they could finish, the human ship moved. The first engagement without warning, Titan's Wrath fired. Not energy beams, not plasma, but kinetic slugs. Huge pieces of metal accelerated to incredible speeds by railguns. The first shot tore through one Zorath cruiser's shield like it was paper. The second smashed into its hull, splitting the ship in half. The crew panicked. What kind of weapon is that? Cried one officer. Primitive projectiles, Relvis said in shock, but They are moving faster than our sensors can track. The remaining 2 cruisers turned, charging weapons. Plasma bolts lit up the void, striking the human warship. The shields of Titan's Wrath flared. Some sections of armor scorched. But the human ship did not slow. Instead, dozens of smaller drones launched from its sides, swarming like a cloud of angry insects. They jammed Zorath sensors, sent false signals, and even exploded on impact. The battle was short. Within minutes, 2 more Zorath cruisers were torn apart. The void was filled with debris and silence. Only fragments of their fleet remained. The Warning 1 damaged Zorath shuttle managed to escape, fleeing at full speed back toward Imperial space. Its pilot, shaking and half-mad with fear, carried a single message. The humans. They have built a warship. We are not ready. We are not safe. Back on the Zorath capital, the council received the report with disbelief and anger. This is impossible, one counselor said. 1 human ship destroyed 3 of ours? Impossible. Not impossible, the intelligence commander replied grimly. It happened, and if we do not act, it will happen again. The Emperor leaned back in his throne, his face dark. So the humans dare challenge us, he said slowly. They believe 1 ship can frighten the Empire? But even he could not ignore the tremor in the chamber. For the first time in centuries, the Zorath had been humiliated. And far away, in the shadow of an asteroid belt, the Titan's Wrath drifted silently, its weapons cooling, its crew calm. They knew what message had been sent. The galaxy had been warned. Brace yourself. A human warship was coming. And with it, destruction. The galaxy had always believed that power meant refinement. Sleek designs, polished technology, energy beams glowing like stars. That was how the Zorath and other great empires fought their wars. But after the destruction of 3 Zorath cruisers at the hands of a single human ship, something had shifted. The whispers spread from system to system, from trading station to mining colony. The name Titan's Wrath carried with it a new kind of fear. Not elegance, not style, but raw, unrelenting brutality, and the galaxy was about to see it again. Back on Earth's lunar base, the crew of Titan's Wrath celebrated their first victory quietly. They were not arrogant, not careless. Every officer and soldier aboard knew the truth. This was only the beginning. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge, looking over holographic displays of damage reports. His ship had survived the first fight, but not without scars. Armor plates along the starboard side were scorched, and several drone bays needed repairs. Not bad, said Commander Vega, his second-in-command, scanning the reports. 3 enemy cruisers down. Only minor damage to us. Rourke's eyes remained hard. Minor damage can become fatal damage in the wrong fight. We cannot get comfortable, the crew nodded. They understood. Humanity was no longer testing weapons in secret. They were declaring themselves to the galaxy, and the galaxy would answer. The Zorath's shame in the Zorath capital, the return of the damaged shuttle had caused chaos. The High Council gathered in fury. They humiliated us, roared Councillor Erix, slamming his clawed hand against the marble table. 3 of our finest ships destroyed by crude human tricks. They used nothing but kinetic slugs, another shouted. Primitive, brutal. How could it pierce our shields? The intelligence commander, who had warned them before, stood with calm precision. They combined simple physics with overwhelming power. Your shields are designed to resist plasma and energy. They are not designed to stop mountains of metal flying at a fraction of light speed. The chamber fell into silence. Even the proudest among them knew the truth of those words. The Emperor finally spoke, his voice cold as stone. Enough excuses. We are Zorath. We will not be mocked by primitives. Send a fleet, 50 ships. Find this warship. Break it apart. Bring me the wreckage as proof of our power. The silent hunt days later, 50 Zorath ships left hyperspace near the asteroid belt where Titan's Wrath had been last seen. Cruisers, destroyers, even a dreadnought among them. Their formation was flawless, their weapons charged, but Titan's Wrath was no longer there. Instead, the humans had left a trail, decoy signals, scattered transmissions, and strange debris that confused Zorath sensors. The mighty fleet searched, but the warship remained hidden, moving like a ghost in the dark. Captain Rourke watched from afar, his ship cloaked in the shadows of drifting asteroids. He studied the Zorath fleet's every movement. They brought 50 ships, Vega whispered. Rourke's eyes narrowed. 50 ships against 1. They still don't understand. They think this is about numbers. He smiled grimly. It's not. The trapped Zorath fleet split into smaller groups, spreading across the belt in search of the human ship. They thought their formation gave them strength. Instead, it gave the humans opportunity. Titan's Wrath struck first. From behind a cluster of asteroids, the warship fired its railguns. Huge slugs smashed into a destroyer, breaking it in half before its crew even knew they were under attack. Then the drones launched. Small, fast, and unpredictable, they swarmed through the field, crashing into enemy ships, blinding sensors, planting charges. A cruiser's engines went dark. Another spun helplessly into an asteroid, exploding in a bright fireball. The Zorath commander roared through comms. Find them! Destroy them! They are only one ship. But the humans were everywhere and nowhere. The asteroids themselves became weapons. Titan's Wrath used hidden magnetic launchers to hurl massive rocks into enemy formations. Shields designed for plasma blasts shattered against mountains of stone. In less than an hour, 8 Zorath ships were gone. Zorath counterattacked, but the Zorath were not weak. Their fleet regrouped, tightening formation, covering one another with overlapping shields. Plasma fire lit the dark belt, striking Titan's Wrath again and again. Inside the human ship, alarms rang. Armor melted. Drones were lost. Hull integrity fell to dangerous levels. We can't keep taking hits like this, shouted Vega. Rourke stood tall. Then we don't take them. Bring us closer. Inside their formation, the crew stared in shock. Charging directly into a fleet of 40 ships was madness. But they obeyed. Titan's Wrath surged forward, weaving through plasma blasts, its armor glowing from the heat. Then at close range it unleashed its full fury. Railguns fired in all directions, tearing through cruisers. Missile bays opened, releasing hundreds of warheads. Point defense turrets spun like lightning, shooting down enemy drones. The Zorath fleet was thrown into chaos. They had never faced an enemy that attacked with such reckless courage, such impossible tactics, and in the center of it all, Titan's Wrath kept moving, unstoppable, like a storm tearing through the void. The terror spreads. When the battle ended, the asteroid belt was filled with wreckage. 25 Zorath ships destroyed, 15 more crippled and fleeing. The survivors carried with them only fear. The humans had lost drones, missiles, and sections of armor, but Titan's Wrath still floated, its engines burning bright, its guns ready. Captain Rourke stood on the bridge, silent as he watched enemy ships scatter. He knew this victory would not end the war. It would only spread the fear further, and he was right. In every corner of the galaxy, news of the battle spread. The humans had faced a fleet of 50 ships and lived. The name Titan's Wrath became legend. Some called it the Ghost of the Belt. Others called it the Steel Monster. But all agreed on one truth. When the human warship arrived, nothing could stop it. Reactions across the stars in the Zorath capital. The Emperor smashed his throne's armrest in rage. His counselors trembled, but none dared speak against him. They shame us again, he hissed. Primitives. Yet they make us look weak. We underestimated them, the intelligence commander said carefully. They fight with strange logic. They are unpredictable. That is their weapon. The Emperor leaned forward. Then we will crush them with overwhelming force. No more fleets. Bring out the super dreadnought. The humans will learn what true power is. Across the galaxy, other races watched with interest. The oppressed and the weak whispered to each other in secret places. Perhaps the humans can fight for us. Perhaps the Zorath are not invincible. And far away, in the darkness of space, the Titan's Wrath drifted silently, its crew repairing damage, its captain already planning the next move. Captain's reflection on the bridge. Rourke stood alone, staring at the stars. He knew the battles would only grow harder. The Zorath would not stop. They could not allow their empire to lose face. But he also knew something else. Humanity had proven itself. No longer ignored, no longer dismissed, they had entered the galaxy stage. His voice was low, almost a whisper. They thought we were weak. They thought we were children. Now they will see who we are. He turned to his crew, his eyes like steel. Brace yourselves. This is only the beginning. The crew nodded, ready for whatever came next, for they were aboard Titan's Wrath, the warship that had made the galaxy tremble. The galaxy no longer doubted humanity's strength. Titan's Wrath had already shattered the pride of the Zorath Empire twice. But the Zorath were not a race that surrendered easily. They had ruled for centuries with war and fear. Now, humiliated, they prepared to crush humanity with overwhelming force. The galaxy whispered, the third battle was coming. The Zorath's response. Inside the great war hall of the Zorath capital, the Emperor sat upon his high throne. Around him stood his council, commanders, and strategists. Their faces were tense, their pride wounded. The humans mock us again and again, the Emperor said, his deep voice echoing through the hall. They have destroyed our cruisers. They have scattered our fleets. But they will not break the Empire. Not while I breathe. Councillor Eric, still furious from the earlier defeats, spoke first. We underestimated them. That mistake is ours. But the solution is simple. Crush them with overwhelming numbers. The intelligence commander stepped forward, careful with his words. Your Majesty, numbers alone may not be enough. The humans fight differently. They are reckless, unpredictable. They turn asteroids into weapons. They use crude but powerful tools. We must change our approach if we wish to defeat them. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. Are you saying the Zorath must learn from primitives? The chamber fell silent. To suggest that the mighty Zorath adapt to humans was dangerous, but the commander spoke again, firm and calm. I am saying that if we fight them with old doctrine, we will lose again. The Emperor rose, towering above all. His voice cut through the silence. Then we will test them. Assemble a great fleet, 50 warships, tighter than before, stronger than before. We will meet them in open battle. And this time the galaxy will see who rules the stars. Humanity prepares far from the Zorath capital. Titan's wrath drifted near a gas giant. The ship had been patched and repaired, though its scars still showed. On its bridge, Captain Elias Rourke studied reports from intelligence satellites. The Zorath are gathering again. Commander Vega said grimly. 50 ships. More than before. They are coming for us. The crew listened quietly. They had survived 2 battles, but this one would be harder. Rourke nodded. Good, let them come. This time we show them what it means to fight humans. Vega frowned. 1 ship against 50. Again? We were lucky last time. How do we win this? Rourke smiled faintly, though there was no joy in it. Luck had nothing to do with it. They fight by rules. We don't. That is our strength. He looked over the faces of his crew. Some were young, some seasoned. All of them carried the same fire in their eyes. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. Now they would prove themselves again. The battlefield. The Zorath chose the place of battle carefully, a barren system with a dead star and scattered debris fields. They believed the open void would give them the advantage of formation. Their fleet arrived first, ships lined in perfect ranks. Cruisers and destroyers formed protective walls around heavy carriers. Plasma cannons glowed, shields shimmered, and drones filled the empty void like a swarm of metal birds. When Titan's wrath appeared on the edge of the system, the Zorath fleet roared with laughter over comms. 1 ship? The enemy commander mocked. You dare face us with 1 ship again? Humanity must be mad. On the bridge of Titan's wrath, Captain Rourke's eyes narrowed. Mad, maybe, but madness has its uses. The first strike, the Zorath expected the humans to hide among debris as they had before, but Titan's wrath did not hide. Instead, it charged directly at the fleet. Railguns thundered. Massive slugs tore through the void, striking at long range. 1 Zorath destroyer exploded instantly, caught unprepared. The Zorath commander smirked. Foolish. Shields up! Forward! Plasma fire answered, filling space with burning light. Titan's wrath shook under the impact. Its shields flared, its armor melted. Yet it kept moving forward. Direct charge? Vega muttered, gripping the railing. This isn't like you, Captain. Rourke's eyes gleamed. Wait for it. The doctrine clashed. The Zorath believed in order, formation, and overwhelming firepower. Their ships fought like a wall of iron, each covering the other. To them, war was about discipline and numbers. Humans thought differently. To them, war was chaos, improvisation, turning anything into a weapon. As Titan's wrath closed the distance, the crew unleashed a new trick. From hidden bays, hundreds of drones flew out, but instead of attacking directly, they scattered strange objects into the void. Metal scraps, reflective shards, fragments of magnetic coils. Zorath sensors went wild. Their targeting systems struggled to tell real missiles from decoys. Plasma fire scattered uselessly into empty space. Then the asteroids came. Titan's wrath had prepared the battlefield earlier, pushing debris into the system's orbit. With hidden magnetic launchers, the crew hurled rocks the size of buildings into the Zorath formation. Shields cracked. Cruisers broke apart. A carrier spun out of formation, burning. The Zorath commander roared in rage. Titan formation! Crush them! But the tighter they closed ranks, the easier it became for the human warship to target them with concentrated fire. Close quarters, Titan's Wrath dove straight into the Zorath line. At such close range, its weapons fired without pause. Railguns blasted holes in shields, missiles screamed from launchers, and drones attacked engines and weapon ports. The Zorath fought back fiercely. Plasma blasts scorched the human ship, tearing away chunks of armor. Entire drone swarms were wiped out by enemy fire. The bridge shook with every hit. We can't take much more, Vega shouted. Rourke stood firm. Then we take them down first. He gave the order. All weapons fire at will. No holding back. The ship roared like a beast. Every cannon, every launcher, every drone gave its all. Titan's Wrath spun and twisted through the enemy fleet, leaving destruction in its path. Zorath ships fell one after another. But Titan's Wrath bled too, its hull torn, its shields collapsing. Turning the tide at the height of the battle, when the ship seemed ready to break, Rourke made his boldest move. Cut engines, he ordered. The crew froze. Sir, that will leave us dead in space. Do it, Rourke said calmly. Engines went dark. Titan's Wrath drifted silently, looking like a crippled ship. The Zorath saw this and cheered. They're finished, their commander shouted. All ships forward! But it was a trap. As the enemy closed in, hidden railguns on Titan's Wrath's underbelly activated, firing at point-blank range. Entire lines of Zorath cruisers exploded before they realized what had happened. Then the engines roared back to life, and Titan's Wrath surged upward, tearing through the weakened fleet. The aftermath: when the battle ended, the void was littered with wreckage. Dozens of Zorath ships burned, their fleet shattered once more. Titan's Wrath floated among them, scarred, battered, but unbroken. Inside the bridge, silence fell. The crew stared at the screens, unable to believe they had survived again. Commander Vega finally spoke. One ship, against 50, and we won. Rourke's face was calm, but his voice carried steel. We didn't win because of power. We won because we fight differently. That is humanity's strength. The galaxy reacts. News spread quickly, faster than light itself. The Zorath Empire had been defeated again, humiliated before the entire galaxy. Other species whispered with awe, some with hope, some with fear. The humans are dangerous. The humans fight like no other. The humans may be our only chance. In secret corners of the galaxy, oppressed races began to dream of freedom. They wondered if humanity might one day fight for them too. But in the Zorath capital, the Emperor's rage burned hotter than ever. No more games, he declared. No more fleets. Bring forth the super dreadnought. If the humans wish to play at war, we will show them what war truly is. And so the galaxy braced itself again. The greatest clash was still to come. The galaxy was changing. For centuries, the Zorath Empire had ruled with iron fists and endless fleets. No one dared oppose them. Their enemies were crushed, their rebels silenced, and their rivals absorbed into the Empire's machine. But now a shadow had risen, not the shadow of weakness, but of resistance. And at the center of that shadow was a single human warship, Titan's Wrath. The cracks in the Empire, in the deep halls of the Zorath capital, silence filled the Emperor's court. Once that court had been a place of boasting and pride, where commanders reported victories and conquests. Now it was filled with fear. 2 fleets had been destroyed by humans, not by an army, not by an empire, but by one ship. The Emperor stood tall, his golden armor shining in the dim light. His voice was cold, carrying both fury and shame. The humans dare to humiliate us twice. 50 ships against 1, and still we bleed. Tell me, counselors, what will the galaxy think of us now? None answered. None dared. Finally, the intelligence commander spoke, his words careful. They already whisper, my Emperor. The smaller races, the colonies, the ones we conquered long ago. They whisper of hope. They say if humans can strike the Empire, maybe others can too. The Emperor's claws gripped the edge of his throne. Hope, he spat. Hope is more dangerous than weapons. Hope makes slaves dream of freedom. We must kill that hope before it spreads further. Whispers across the stars, and yet hope was already spreading. On distant mining colonies, alien workers passed secret messages. Have you heard? The humans fought the Zorath fleet and won. On trading stations, smugglers told wild stories. They say the human ship is like a beast, It tears through fleets as if they were nothing. In rebel camps hidden on barren moons, leaders gathered in silence. If the humans can do this, maybe it is time we rise again. The oppressed, the enslaved, the beaten, all of them watched the stars with new eyes. And in those stars, Titan's Wrath continued to move. Aboard Titan's Wrath, the warship drifted through the darkness, its engines humming softly, its hull scarred from battle. Inside, the crew worked day and night to repair damage. Burnt armor plates were replaced, new drones were assembled, missile racks were restocked. Captain Elias Rourke walked the bridge slowly, watching his people. Their faces were tired, but their eyes burned with determination. They knew what they carried was more than survival. They carried the weight of humanity's honor, and now perhaps the dreams of the galaxy. Commander Vega approached, a datapad in her hands. "Captain, we've intercepted Zorath transmissions. They're preparing something big." Rourke raised an eyebrow. "Bigger than 50 ships?" Vega nodded grimly. "Yes, they're bringing out something ancient. Something called a super dreadnought." The crew fell silent at the word. "What is it?" asked one young officer. "A relic," Vega said. "A war machine from the old days before the Zorath became rulers. It's bigger than anything in service today. Heavily armored. Heavily armed. They used it once to crush 3 entire rebellions." Rourke studied the stars outside the window. "So, the Empire brings its monster to fight us." His voice was steady. "Then we'll show them how humans fight monsters." The enemy's trump card far away in a hidden shipyard, the Zorath prepared their ancient weapon. The super dreadnought was colossal, larger than a city, its hull thick with armor, its weapons arrays covering every angle. It moved slowly, but its power was unmatched. As the ship came alive, the Zorath commander in charge of it smiled cruelly. "Let the galaxy tremble," he said. "The humans may have tricks, but tricks cannot pierce this fortress." The Emperor himself sent a message to the galaxy. "The Zorath Empire will not fall. We unleash our greatest weapon. The humans will be broken, their warship will burn, and all who think of rebellion will be silenced." But even as the Emperor's words spread, so too did whispers of fear. If the humans face the super dreadnought, will they survive? The upgrades on Titan's Wrath, the engineers were already working on solutions. The humans knew they could not fight a super dreadnought with the same weapons. They needed more. In hidden shipyards near Jupiter, new modifications were loaded. Gigantic mass drivers were installed, capable of firing projectiles the size of houses. New experimental shielding was tested, unstable but powerful. Artificial intelligence cores were linked to the ship's targeting systems, making weapons faster, sharper, more precise. The crew worked without rest. They were exhausted, but they knew what was coming. Rourke stood with the chief engineer, an old man named Harris, who wiped sweat from his brow. "This ship wasn't built for this kind of fight," Harris said. "A super dreadnought will crush us like an insect." Rourke's gaze was hard. "Then we'll sting like an insect it cannot kill." The galaxy holds its breath all across the stars, eyes turned toward the coming clash. Neutral traders paused their journeys. Colonies waited in silence. Even rival empires who once despised humanity watched with quiet curiosity. If Titan's Wrath survived, the Zorath would never be the same again. If Titan's Wrath fell, the dream of resistance might die with it. The galaxy held its breath, the crew's resolve on the night before battle. The crew of Titan's Wrath gathered in the mess hall. It was not celebration, but reflection. Some wrote messages to families on Earth. Others polished their weapons, even though boarding action was unlikely. A few sat in silence, staring at the stars through the viewing ports. Commander Vega stood before them. "Tomorrow we face the greatest weapon the Zorath have. Bigger than us. Stronger than us. But we are not afraid, because we know something they don't." The crew leaned forward, listening. "They fight with pride. We fight with survival. And survival makes us dangerous." The room filled with quiet determination. Captain Rourke said only one thing: "Brace yourselves. The fear in the Empire." Meanwhile, inside the Zorath Empire itself, cracks were spreading faster. Colonies whispered louder. Resistance groups grew bolder. Even governors of outer systems began to hesitate, wondering if the Empire's grip was truly unbreakable. One rebel leader on a distant moon whispered to her followers, If Titan's wrath wins, it won't just be humanity's victory. It will be a victory for all of us. The final message as Titan's wrath prepared to leave orbit, a message was sent to all human colonies and allied outposts. Rourke's face appeared on screens across Earth, Mars, and beyond. "We face a monster tomorrow," he said. "The Zorath will throw their greatest weapon at us. They think we will break. But humanity does not break. We bend, we bleed, we fall, but we always rise again." His voice grew harder. "Remember this. If you hear our name after tomorrow, it means we stood against the greatest empire in the galaxy, and we did not fall." The message ended. Across human space, people stood taller, prouder, and far beyond. Even alien races felt a spark in their hearts. The march toward doom, the super dreadnought moved slowly through space, but its presence was like a storm. Entire fleets escorted it, filling the void with light. It was a floating city of war, a titan of destruction. Titan's wrath, though scarred and smaller, surged forward to meet it. Its crew was ready, its weapons charged, its engines roared. Two philosophies were about to collide: Zorath pride, human ingenuity. The stars were silent. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath as two giants moved toward each other. On one side was the Zorath Empire's pride, the super dreadnought, a war machine from ancient times, larger than any city, stronger than any fleet. Its black hull was covered with weapons, hundreds of turrets pointing in every direction. The very sight of it was enough to crush hope. On the other side was a single human ship, Titan's Wrath. Smaller, scarred, outnumbered, but burning with a spirit that no empire could measure. For centuries, the Zorath had ruled unchallenged. But today they faced something they had never known before: humanity's refusal to bow. The enemy advances on the bridge of the super dreadnought. Admiral Korath sat in his command chair, his sharp eyes full of pride. He looked down on Titan's Wrath as if it were an insect daring to sting a giant. "This will end quickly," he said, his voice full of arrogance. "Humans may fight with tricks, but against this fortress tricks mean nothing." His officers nodded, though deep inside some felt unease. The stories of Titan's Wrath had spread even among Zorath soldiers. 2 fleets had already been destroyed by this ship. Could it really be so simple to crush them? Still, orders were orders. The dreadnought's massive weapons powered up, sending waves of energy across the void. The battle was about to begin. Titan's Wrath. Prepares in Titan's Wrath, Captain Elias Rourke stood calmly on the bridge. His crew worked with sharp focus, no one speaking louder than necessary. The ship's new weapons hummed, the upgraded shields glowed faintly, and drones floated in launch bays waiting for release. Commander Vega leaned close. "Captain, our chances are slim. Their firepower could destroy us in minutes." Rourke gave a thin smile. "Then we make those minutes count. Every second we survive is another blow to their pride." He looked at his crew. Their faces were tired, but their eyes were steady. They knew what this battle meant, not just for humanity, but for the galaxy. If they fell, the Zorath would claim invincibility once more. If they won, hope would spread like fire. "Brace yourselves," Rourke said, his voice calm but firm. "The storm is here." The first clash, the void exploded with light. The super dreadnought fired first. Beams of energy the size of rivers tore across space, smashing against Titan's Wrath shields. The smaller ship shook violently, alarms ringing through its halls. "Shields at 70%, shouted an officer. Rourke gave no sign of fear. "Return fire." Titan's Wrath unleashed its weapons. Missiles streaked through space, drones swarmed forward, and railguns fired rounds at incredible speed. Explosions blossomed across the dreadnought's surface, tearing into its outer defenses. But the massive ship barely flinched. Its armor absorbed the hits and its weapons fired again. The battle was one-sided. Every time Titan's Wrath struck, the dreadnought struck back harder. Every second was survival bought with blood and courage. Ingenuity over power. "Captain, we can't match them," cried Vega. Rourke nodded. "We don't need to. Aim for their weaknesses." "Harris, where are they most vulnerable?" The old engineer's voice came over the comm. "The dreadnought's weapons are powerful, but its systems are ancient. They rely on massive cooling vents. If we can overload them, we might cause a chain reaction." "Then that's our target," Rourke said firmly. The crew shifted tactics. Drones swarmed toward the dreadnought's vents, sacrificing themselves to deliver explosives. Railgun rounds aimed for thinner armor near the cooling systems. Every shot was a gamble, every strike a test of human precision. The dreadnought roared with fire, but cracks began to appear. The Empire's arrogance on the dreadnought's bridge. Admiral Korath laughed. "Is this all they can do? They scratch the paint of my ship and think they are strong. Crush them." But then warnings filled his screens. Sections of the dreadnought's outer hull were overheating. Vents were damaged. Secondary systems were failing. Korath's laughter faded. What? He realized the truth too late. The humans were not trying to overpower the dreadnought. They were carving at its weak points, turning its own size against it. "This is impossible," Korath muttered. "They are only one ship." The turning point Titan's Wrath shuddered under another blast. Entire decks were burning, casualties reported, shields falling to 30%. The crew struggled, sweat on their faces, determination in their hearts. "We can't hold much longer," Vega shouted. Rourke's voice cut through the chaos. "Then we don't hold, we strike." He ordered the ship closer, flying straight toward the dreadnought. The massive warship filled the entire view, its weapons blazing, its armor towering like a wall of steel. "Sir, if we go any closer, they'll crush us." Rourke's eyes hardened. "If we stay here, they'll crush us anyway. Trust me." Titan's Wrath darted between streams of fire, weaving like a hunter stalking prey. It was insane, reckless, suicidal, and exactly what the Zorath did not expect. The final gambit, the ship's last wave of drones launched, carrying warheads. Railguns fired until their barrels glowed red. Missiles streaked forward in tight formations. All of it aimed at one place, the central vent array of the super dreadnought. The dreadnought's defenses tried to swat them down, but Titan's Wrath's AI-controlled systems outmaneuvered them. Explosions ripped through the vent systems. Fire spread across the giant's hull. Inside the dreadnought, alarms screamed. Engineers panicked as overheating cascaded through the ship's core. "Impossible," Admiral Korath shouted. "Shut it down. Divert power." But it was too late. The monster falls from the outside. The super dreadnought glowed brighter and brighter, its inner systems overloading. A deep rumble shook through space. And then, a blinding explosion lit the void. The mighty dreadnought, the pride of the Zorath Empire, the weapon meant to destroy hope, was gone. Only drifting wreckage remained. Titan's Wrath floated nearby, battered and broken but alive. Silence across the stars for a long moment. There was silence. The galaxy watched in disbelief. A single human ship had destroyed the greatest war machine of the Zorath Empire. On colonies and outposts, on rebel bases and trading stations, cheers erupted. Hope spread like wildfire. Species who had once cowered now stood taller, believing freedom was possible. The Zorath Empire, once untouchable, had been wounded, and it was humanity that had struck the blow. Aftermath on Titan's Wrath. The crew gathered on the bridge, exhausted but alive. Sparks flickered, smoke filled the air, but smiles broke through the grime on their faces. Commander Vega leaned against her console. "We actually did it." Rourke nodded slowly, his eyes on the wreckage of the dreadnought. "Yes, but this is only the beginning. The Empire will come again. They will not forgive this." Harris chuckled weakly through the comm. "Then we'll just have to keep teaching them what it means to fight humans." The crew laughed softly, tired but proud. A message to the galaxy before repairs began. Rourke ordered a transmission sent across every channel in every language. His voice carried not only to humans but to every corner of the galaxy. "This is Captain Elias Rourke of Titan's Wrath. The Zorath Empire sent their greatest weapon against us. It is gone, remember this, not because of our strength but because of our spirit. Humanity does not bow, humanity does not break. And if we can stand, so can you." His words echoed across worlds. For the first time in generations, the galaxy believed that the Zorath Empire could be defeated. The Wrath lives. On Titan's Wrath drifted forward, engines sparking back to life. It was battered, scarred, and held together by sheer willpower. But it was still moving, and as long as it moved, as long as it fought, it carried a message that no empire could silence. The message was simple.